The investigations into the death of Jeffrey Epstein continue. Epstein, who was set to stand trial on sex trafficking and conspiracy charges, apparently killed himself in a jail cell in New York. He was accused of running a vast network of underage girls for sex, and he pleaded not guilty last month. Joining me now via Skype from Los Angeles is our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari. Lisa, some say the 66-year-old Epstein did not actually commit suicide because he was on suicide watch, but it was more to do with his connections with U.S. President Donald Trump and the Clintons. There's a bit of a conspiracy here. What do you say?
Absolutely. No matter how you look at this, there is more to the story that is not being reported, and it leaves many to have questions beyond what we're being told. And it's not just who he was. I mean, I do foreign affairs, and you and I are discussing this because this man was had access to and was privy to many secrets, a lot of access, a lot of influence, a lot of political life here in the United States. And what did he know? What secrets was he carrying? What would have come to light had he been able to tell his story? So that's obviously the questions that are on everyone's minds. But even on the surface, let's look at him as a simple man who attempted suicide not too long ago. Why wasn't he being watched? How did this happen? Do these lapses happen often, or do we not hear about them because they're not high-profile cases? But this is a severe lapse in our justice system. If he attempted suicide not too long ago, he should be on suicide watch. Now, will we ever get the answers? Who knows? The person who's carrying those answers is not alive to tell them. So again, investigation on investigation on investigation will continue, but will the American people get the answers that they're looking for is yet to be determined.
Sadly, another mosque shooting, this one occurring in Norway. Police say a woman was found dead at the home of the suspect. Now, according to a recent news report, the Norway attack suspect was inspired by the Christchurch, New Zealand, and the El Paso, Texas attacks, Lisa.
Yes, so this individual, sick individual, was obviously motivated by racism and other isms that aren't even worth mentioning right now. But luckily, the silver lining to this is that there were only 3 people in the mosque, and 2 of the men were able to overwhelm this shooter and take him down before anyone was hurt in the mosque itself. But it's a warning, obviously, that this ideology, this idea that if you don't like a certain sect of people, you can just take arms and walk into a synagogue or a church or a mosque and take actions into your own hands. This makes it very difficult to live a normal life, to go to the mall, to a sports event, to Walmart, to your place of worship, to your school, without feeling like somebody who doesn't like you or who's having a bad day will take arms and walk into that place. We've had the same or similar to the core of our gun laws for many decades, but it's never been like this. So there are many questions here. Why have things changed? Why are people behaving this way? Why is it being publicized this way? Is it because of social media that people are allowed to have a manifesto and spread their terrible, sick ideology before they commit these kinds of heinous crimes? Lots of questions to ask ourselves as a society, as to why this is happening in the United States so often, and how we can stop it.
And what's really sad is how many shooters say they were inspired by other shooters. That's sick in itself, right? Lisa, 14 people were injured outside of a holy site in Jerusalem, including police. Medics say 4 police officers were wounded in the skirmishes at a place the Jews refer to as the Temple Mount. This is the worst bout of fighting at the contested holy site in months.
Yes, well, it doesn't say much because every few months we do see something like this flare up. And what's unfortunate is that this round has been kind of like a 2 or 3 on the scale of intensity, nothing like what we had in 2014 or 2006. But at the same time, it hasn't died down. We had a young boy who was killed, murdered by Palestinians a week or so ago, about 18 years old. Um, I had read a report that this was the same day that his grandfather was murdered by Palestinians, about 10 years ago. Six stories coming out of the Middle East, and of course, this country of Israel, where there is no peace and there hasn't been any peace. And how coincidental that this falls simultaneously around the same time that Jared Kushner and the White House are traveling throughout the Middle East in order to announce a peace plan that would be perhaps a solution for peace between the Palestinians and Israelis. This is it's obviously going to fall on deaf ears, and I hate to be the pessimist about this, but look at our headlines day in and day out. They can't stop the fighting. They can't stop the indoctrination. When Palestinian kids are raised with math books that say, if I kill 2 Jews today and 2 tomorrow, how many have I killed? They don't have a future, and that is really on the hands of their leadership, Hamas. When you're being led by a terror organization, you don't have much of a chance of a bright future, of a hopeful future. So this is business as usual, unfortunately, in that part of the world.
Lisa, the president of Afghanistan says his country's fate cannot be decided by friends, neighbors, or enemies. Ashraf Ghani said he does not want anyone intervening in their affairs. His remarks come amid ongoing peace talks between the United States and Taliban forces without the Afghan government being at the table.
Right. It's just comical at this point, and it's not comical. We don't want to make light of the fact that so many people are being killed every single day by the Taliban, the same group that the United States is trying to cut a deal with in order to secure the future of the Afghani people. Just today there were reports that there may be a kind of a deadline. If they can't come to terms or find a way to have a resolution with the Taliban, which it doesn't look. In the midst of this talk about a truce or a resolution going forward, 14 more Afghanis were killed today by the Taliban. So they're not painting a bright outlook for themselves.
A fragile truce in Yemen after separatist soldiers stormed and captured the presidential palace. The seizure exposed a rift within Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates coalition.
When stories like this come out, it becomes more and more apparent that no external group is in Yemen for the sake of Yemen, but this is a proxy war that would be fought on their own land instead. So when you have the Saudis up against the UAE, you'd think, okay, well, they're both there in order to do two things: curb the Iranian influence from growing, that's the Houthi influence, and to perhaps bring some sort of semblance to and stability to Yemen, a country that has not been able to get any. The pictures coming out of Yemen right now are horrific. You see the children in famine with their bones sticking out, and very, very, very hard to see and watch these videos coming out. But at the same time, when you see those who are there and almost entrusted with this, wanting to help the Yemeni people, but are really fighting each other, it kind of takes us to what the UN said, just hands off. And it's not like me to quote the UN, especially in matters of foreign affairs. But it's going to be a long time before we see any real nation building over there. The UAE, Saudi Arabia, defending different parts. Right now, the Saudis want the ousted leader back in. The UAE says, no, we're in charge now. They're running the separatists, and the Houthis, of course, being backed by the Iranian regime. Lots of different layers, lots of different influences, and no end in sight.
No easy answers, that's right. India is promising to ease its Kashmir curfew as Pakistan is accusing the New Delhi government of ethnic cleansing. Now, the Kashmir tensions have even spilled over into Indian and Pakistani communities in Great Britain, Lisa.
Yes, this is something that it's a hot topic. It always has been. We don't talk about it here in the West, but this has been the point of contention between the Indians and Pakistanis. And we've always known that they've been rivals, but we haven't really talked about why. This is one of the reasons. I mean, land disputes and control over this area. Now, India wanting to, soak up as much influence and power as possible over the Kashmiris, who have wanted to shake off this Indian power for a very long time, and the Pakistanis just trying to do the opposite, trying to call out the Indians on this amount of control and power that they are trying to exert over the Kashmiris. So this is going to be a long time coming. In the meantime, they've cut power and access and the internet, and there's a curfew in place, and these are on and off based on what the Indian government feels is a threat. They want to kind of control the people. They want to, kind of tame them, simmer down the protests, etc. So that's where we're at.
North Korea is back in the news once again as Kim Jong-un was overseeing a new weapons system. The report came as U.S. President Trump said he would meet again soon with Kim to discuss denuclearization.
Yeah. More chest thumping from North Korea. We tested that missile. We're still here. And just last week they were reminded by the United States, wait a minute, we agreed to X, Y, and Z, and now what are you saying? This is what happens when you're dealing with a rogue dictator. No one said it was going to be easy, Donald Trump. No one said it was going to be easy. We said it was historic when Donald Trump met with him for the first time. There was a second time. There were letters exchanged. They became excellent pen pals. And now more of the same. Every couple of days, we talk about different missiles being tested by the North Korean regime. I think that this is similar to what we're seeing in China. We're at a point where there are certain factors, I should say, that the two sides cannot agree on. So what does Kim Jong-un do? He flexes his muscles and say, look, I'm not at your mercy, and I won't agree to X, Y, and Z, and I will come to the table, but I want you to know that I'm also flexing my muscles. It's very similar to what we have with China. But, for Donald Trump's sake and his foreign policy record, one of these issues has to have a clear resolution by the time his reelection is up. And I say that because this is being reported regularly. And, if it's something that's not resolved, it will look as though it was a foreign policy failure, only because we've almost woken up the beast rather than just had him off to the side.
Now, this next story, I couldn't believe when I was reading it. I thought maybe I was reading The Onion or something, some fake news. Brazil's President Bolsonaro says in order to protect the environment, people should eat less and therefore defecate or poop less. He's actually saying this here.
Yeah, is that Bolsonaro or is that AOC? It's a very, very, very funny headline. When you look at the details of his plan, it's all about consumption and the planet, right? So if you eat less, you defecate less, and therefore you're using fewer resources across the board, right? So food for thought, no pun intended. But you look at these crazy headlines coming from leaders all over the world, including right here with our Democrat candidates for 2020. The environment is obviously very important, but how we tackle it, these are some very unique and creative ideas. I'll leave it at that.
No kidding, that's right. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, joining me once again from Los Angeles. Thanks so much, Lisa.
My pleasure.